Welcome to the 10th episode of Real Talk with Claudia. And yes, you had that right. It is the 10th episode, which marks it as a season. And I hope this gives you the evidence that the most important thing is to start. And before you know it, you've done your building blocks and you have a track record and a journey to reflect on your growth as well. So the most important thing is to start and just be consistent and build that momentum, keep on moving and just build, So yes, celebrating that first season, super excited. And today we are talking about confidence and specifically for a Black person. I want to talk to you as a Black person, from a Black person to another. And you might be asking yourself, why you, Claudia, needs to be talking about confidence. And I just want to share with you a little bit about my background. From as early as high school, I started public speaking, doing debates. I'd be one of those kids who gets selected to go and do a speech and representing the youth of Eswatini. And after high school, going to university, I joined a contest, Miss UNESCO. I started a meditations group. When I finish uni, I go to South Africa in the WeWork in Sandton to do a presentation on stoicism and self-development. And when I come back to Eswatini, I get invited on different national TV programs to speak on self-development, my journey on content creation, wellness, my views about all of those things. And I move on to start a podcast and, just allow me to share a much more in-depth story when it comes to starting this podcast, all to make you understand why today I feel confident enough to talk about confidence. I remember very well, I am waking up in the morning in the house on the day that I have to be launching the podcast, and I'm having monologues, I'm having mind chatter, I'm just really having recurring thoughts about what am I going to say? Today is the day. And my head is like, Claudia, you could still withdraw, you could still pause, you could still not do it. And I'm just asking myself all of these questions, like, what do you have to say to the people? What makes you think you can start a podcast? Like, what do you have to share to the people that they haven't heard before that is valuable? Are you the right person to be doing this? And it is that mind chatter. I get to the Kumbi, it's the same thing. And probably anyone who saw me that day in town, I was like, what's up with her? You could confuse me for a crazy person, I swear. And when I get to the studio, I say hi to everybody. But I'm just pacing up and down, mind chatter. I'm having monologues. And the crew is just like, Claudia is no longer here. She's on the hot seat. She's Real Talk with Claudia right now. And they were right. I was Real Talk with Claudia. And the whole time I'm praying that they never finish setting up. But my prayers are not answered. They finish setting up. They asked me to get on the hot seat to make sure that everything is well set up. I sit, and now the mind chatter changes. Everybody has smiles, is ready, is like, oh, I'm ready to listen to Claudia. What does she have to say? Like, Claudia, ready whenever you are. And the one thing that is going in my head, in my body, actually, like, guys, let me know in the comments what happens for you when you're nervous. But for me, my body temperature rises. I'm feeling hot. I'm sweating. I'm having recurring thoughts in my head. But that's not the worst of it all. The worst of it all is diarrhea. Like, do you get the diarrhea that happens when you're nervous, when you have anxiety? And the whole time, I'm like, even my stomach is growling, it's making the noise. And I'm like, oh my gosh, can they hear that? I hope they don't. And yeah, I'm still waiting for the day that they tell me. And I'm overthinking so much when I'm sitting on the hot seat. I'm like, I want to go to the bathroom. But, maybe not. And the worst thing that could happen right now is if 5 minutes into the podcast, I asked to go to the bathroom and I'd be like, I just want to go pee, but the walk will clearly tell that no, the body said 6 divided by 3. I want to go and stay in the bathroom, eh? But anyway, I go ahead. I do it for the first 10 minutes. I don't know what I'm saying, and I get into the truth of things. And today we're on the 10th episode. So that's the backstory. And I'm sharing this story for you to just have a little think. What if the one thing that is standing between the best version of you and your potential is confidence? You know, Mel Robbins, a podcaster, an author, and therapist, describes confidence as the willingness to try. And I add Claudia's definition on that to say it's the willingness to be seen failing. It's the willingness to be seen failing in public and not attach to that outcome. Maybe let us get into the gist of understanding why confidence is important. How does not having confidence right now affect you? You know, there's actually studies. And whenever I go like studies, I'm like, oh, you probably go like, oh, there's Claudia again with studies. But I love studies because they have evidence. It's research. They're empirical. There's been surveys. There's been interviews. There's been recurring observations for people to reach to those conclusions, which means that when we talk about these things, we're not just rambling. You know, they are science-based or they have evidence. Studies show that confident people get to earn more at work. They get to have satisfaction with their work. They get to have better and successful relationships. They get to tackle problems better. They get to take risks more. They get to communicate better. It just has so many benefits. And, you know, as I shared my story, you could have probably related to a feeling that I had when I'm nervous, right? There's probably been a time where you get invited to a birthday and you have to deliver a speech for a friend, or there's been a time where you have to do a presentation and you are feeling this panic attack. You are feeling this anxiety. And maybe at some point you're even like, I'm not going to go for that opportunity because I feel so bad. I'm not feeling so safe in my body. I'm not feeling confident. I don't feel like I have what it takes to actually see this thing through. And I just want to kind of dissect 4 ways that lack of confidence may be affecting you, ways that you probably haven't reflected on in the past. And the key area that you just need to work on is actually confidence. And one of them is communication. Lack of confidence affects our communication skills. Like I made an example, there's probably a time where you've had to do a presentation and you decide to stay in the background and disappear with the background because you are afraid of how you'll be judged. You are afraid of what you have to say. You are afraid of how you will be perceived. You just don't trust yourself enough. You're not confident. You don't trust your ability to see the task through. And you are afraid of the attachment, the association that the audience is going to have with you, maybe lack of competency if you don't perform well on that presentation. So at the end of the day, we don't communicate at all, or when we communicate poorly. I remember when I started the meditations in uni, one of the things that I would do is to, before we actually get into the actual meditation, just have a little practice, you know, where we sit in a circle and I ask everybody to introduce themselves and share something that they're grateful for. And one of the things that I would observe is that you find that one person, they're there introducing themselves and you can feel the voice shaking. Like this voice is crumbling and they can't give eye contact. And it's like, but I spend time with you out of these rooms, and I know you know English, and I know you can express yourself, you can speak, you make jokes, you're such a cool person, but why can't you speak here? And one of the things that I would say in those setups is, if you can't speak here, and yet we're all university students, which kind of gives us a ground where we feel like equals, what are you going to do one day when you actually have to pitch a business for your business, a business pitch, you know? What are you going to do when you have to express yourself, when you have to, you know, by the time you want to chase goals in this world and you just can't construct a few sentences to introduce yourself in a confident manner? So that is quite sad and scary. One of the things that I've been privileged enough to do as well with my background in recruitment is that, you know, sometimes people would come to me and be like, yeah, Claudia, please help me prepare for an interview. And even through that, you know, you're like, okay, go ahead, introduce yourself. And a person can't construct proper sentences to introduce themselves. And that boils down to the lack of confidence. And imagine how many opportunities, like it immediately narrows down the opportunities that you could get to enjoy in this life because of the inability to communicate as a result of having low self-esteem. And one other way that I believe, based on my observation, that confidence affects us is relationships, the way we get to experience relationships. As a guy, how are you going to have the confidence to walk up to a woman and tell her that you like her, that you see a future with her, that you like to build a life with her, you know, to express yourself to her if you don't have confidence in yourself? You know, studies actually show that people struggle, they withdraw from relationships if their partners have a positive outlook on them, like they perceive them in a positive way, and they don't have that relationship with themselves. Like, I don't feel confident. And someone who feels confident in me, that makes me feel uncomfortable. So I'm going to withdraw. Like, we can only enjoy relationships from the standpoint of how we perceive ourselves. So if we feel like we are worthy of love, then we'll allow other people to love us. You know, we'll feel worthy of being in that relationship. We'll feel worthy of that attention. We'll feel worthy of being respected, of someone being attentive to us, of someone believing in us. But if we can't give ourselves that one thing, we will withdraw from people who give us that one thing. So that is one area that lack of confidence could be affecting us in. And, you know, same for us as women. You know, if we don't feel confident enough, we have insecurities, we will withdraw from relationships. Lack of confidence makes us have social anxiety. You know, we become antisocial because we lack confidence. So our relationships, our communities suffer because we lack confidence. And one other way is our decision making. Like we've already talked about relationships and communication. Again, because of my background in recruitment, I have witnessed so many times that people cancel an interview because they are so nervous. I have witnessed so many times that people attend an interview and based on paper, they have all the skills, they are good, but they can't sell themselves. They can't articulate themselves really well. And here's the interesting thing. People hire people they like. So if you can't get yourself in that likable position, you can't sell your skills, it affects your entire career. It affects the decision that you make. Another fun fact. This is also based on a study. It showed that women only apply for a role if they feel like they meet 100% of the requirements. And men or apply for a role if they feel like they meet 60% of the requirements. Isn't that crazy? And I can attest to that. I've seen it in interviews where this person has zero background in bookkeeping, in accounting, but here they are interviewing for this role in accounting. And let me tell you what, I've seen people get hired with zero background in bookkeeping, with zero background in using Xero or QuickBooks or Sage, but they got hired because of the way that they sold themselves, the way that they make the interviewer feel so comfortable. They created a comfortable, warm atmosphere. And then you come across women who are completely qualified, but they couldn't give eye contact. They couldn't articulate their background, their skills, and how they would be a perfect fit in that role. So all of those things can, affect the opportunities that we go for, the relationships that we go for. That deciding factor, if you actually go to move to another country or not, if you actually get to attend a party or not, because you feel confident or not confident. And the one other thing that I feel like lack of confidence affects us is expression. If you don't feel confident in your body, you'll not feel confident enough to be vulnerable. Maybe let's say with your partner. I've had stories where you find that maybe a woman or one of the partners in the relationship are like, I've never seen my partner without their t-shirt on. Or I've never seen my partner without a hat. Or the only time where we have to do it, you know what it is when the lights are off. And just get to imagine how much it affects the entirety of a relationship because one person or you are insecure. You don't get to enjoy someone admire you or accept you and love you for who you are because you haven't accepted and loved yourself, because you just lack that confidence that you deserve to be seen the way that you are. You go to the beach, you don't get to enjoy just being in a bikini because you're so self-critical. It really decreases the quality of your experiences. One other ways that we get to see that one doesn't have confidence, or maybe the way that a lack of confidence actually affects you, is even through your posture. I've listened to body language experts talk about how you identify an influential person in a room or someone who's confident. They'll normally have an upright posture. They'll normally use gestures when they are speaking, because all of this shows that I feel safe, I'm confident. And one of the ways that you'd actually identify someone who has low self-esteem, they'll normally slouch. They talk about all of these traits, the distance between your shoulders and your ears, because that means that you're normally in a state that says, I need to protect myself anytime, or I feel sorry for myself. One other thing is even the projection in your voice. So interesting. One of the things that used to happen as part of me starting meditations at school is I would have one-on-one sessions with individuals. And this one guy that I was having sessions with, when we started, first of all, he couldn't even give me eye contact. The way he dressed, you could clearly see that it's neglected. It doesn't iron. It just doesn't pay attention to it. And when he speaks, the voice he speaks that he uses is just like a beta energy, beta like B-E-T-A energy. It's not alpha energy, like project your best voice. So this body experts that I once listened to, they even said, so often you'll find somebody speak like that vibration in your voice, like because of the lack of confidence. or they really use a low tone so much that you have to keep on being like, because they're not confident in what they have to speak. So please project your voice. So please stand up straight. So please use your gestures when you speak. It's actually all of those things that make you look confident and actually get to make you feel confident. Some psychologists will actually talk about the fact that the way your posture is will send messages to your brain that make you feel confident, and you actually get to be confident even if you are not. So what I can say right now, just being here, is to say confidence is not a personality trait. It is something that can be cultivated. Okay. And actually, speaking of that, I want to move on to the misconceptions that we would generally have about confidence. And one of them being, it is something that you're born with. People who have known me and my journey have the tendency to be like, oh, at least Claudia, you are confident. Oh, Claudia, because you were born confident, because it's your character, because it's your personality. And I'm like, oh no, you don't know where I'm coming from. You don't know where I'm coming from with this journey. So you remember the debates that I told you about that I was doing in high school? I spent time in front of the mirror, looking at myself with a script, practicing, going for that contest. I wasn't even in the best form of shape. I was like, when I was joining that concert, I was at my lowest at the time in uni, but I went for it. Because confidence is not something that you are born with. It is something that you actually get to cultivate, that you get to practice, that you get to be intentional about, that you get to have a conversation with yourself and say, I'm doing this. Remember the definition that we talked about? I'm willing to fail. I'm willing to be seen failing in public. And what you think about that is none of my business. And one other misconception that we tend to have about confidence is that it is something that you need to have before you take it on challenges. Confidence is something that comes from within that you get to cultivate over time. One other mindset that you could have, I was listening to a TED talk, and this lady, Emily Jensen, she talked about how confidence is born from that we have done and achieved. And you could be like, all right, now that's contradictory. At the beginning, you said confidence is something that is the willingness to be seen failing, is the willingness to try. And now you're like, it comes from achievements. Well, I would say that it depends on the situation. You could literally interchange between the two ideas. They're both true. There's been moments where I was like, I've never tried that thing before, but I'm willing to fail. I'm willing to try. And there's been moments where I'm like, I have to reflect on all the things that I've accomplished in the past to say, well, this is worth me going for. So that time when I'm sitting on this hot seat to start this podcast, I'm like, well, girl, you've been in an interview and you got hired. You've entered a contest and you actually won. You've done debates before and you've been embarrassed, by the way. Like, there's been embarrassments through all of those things. There's been making mistakes. There's been cringing, looking way into the future and cringing after those things are done. But it's like, we did them anyway. We didn't die. So what's the worst that could happen? What do we have to lose? Let's just do this, So actually reflecting on the things that you've done and you've been successful on, or you didn't die, or you actually learned something from, you got a track record to reflect on, that's fine. We build confidence through doing. By doing, you augment a little bit of self-respect. You build a track record for yourself that, oh, I have the ability to actually get things done, you know? And that said, I want to talk about things that actually make us less confident. There are things that make us less confident. There are drivers that make us less confident. And now allow me to share some of them that are, from my perspective as a Black person, that I want to share with you. And one of them is comparison. You see Claudia speaking and you're like, the fact that I can't speak like Claudia on that podcast, well, I can't start a podcast. You see people who post pictures of them in bikinis on Instagram and you feel like because you don't look like them, you shouldn't be posting pictures in a bikini on Instagram, right? You see people who, in fact, the mere idea that you know that there are probably people who are more educated than you are and go for things, and you just sort of like create this justification in your head that, oh, well, they're bound to achieve those things. They are bound to be good at them because they have this qualification. You're comparing things that you shouldn't be comparing at the end of the day because you are on your own race and in your own lane. Confidence doesn't compare, because if you want to compare, you're going to build some arrogance, you know? You're going to start getting to a point where you're like, oh, well, I'm better than that person, so I should be doing this. You're going to form some entitlement on some things because you feel like you're better. And confidence isn't that. Confidence isn't arrogant, all right? Confidence isn't entitled. And for you to actually feel like you can build confidence after having wins, that because people who are confident are people who have won before, just because they've won before, that also builds arrogance, you know? Sometimes we actually gain the confidence from actually losing, because then you're like, oh, well, I got this lesson. Next time I know what to improve. Oh, well, I didn't die, you know? So no comparison. And the other thing that I tend to notice quite a lot for people that struggle with confidence is background. Vele thina kusizibale enhlangano. You know, avela ngeke thina study letimfa. Vela ngeke ngikhulume. Vele nje mina ngwale emakhaya. What? Let inhlangano shine. Let Nhlangano shine in town. Show the people what Nhlangano is capable of. Show people how Nhlangano expresses itself. Show people how Nhlangano dances. Show people how Nhlangano speaks English or speaks Siswati. You know, one of my people that I really admire are the likes of Honorable Savannah Mazia. Guys, you know, she's the headline these days. Have you seen her debates in the parliament? Leave me alone. And when I looked her up, I was like, she's from Sitegi. Look at what Sitegi is doing. Sitegi to the world. Sitegi to the world. You know, you gotta start from somewhere. And maybe when you start, people are gonna laugh a little. But for you, you know the path you're on. You know the journey that you're on. Allow Sitegi to start from somewhere, to thrive, and fly to the world. You know, we have Vyotinime Fagutzes here and there. Oh my God. So your background has nothing to do with it. Sometimes, you know, you get to school and you see all of these people, some with privileged backgrounds, and you just feel like, I'm not worthy, Mina, to be here. You are worthy. Own those spaces. You know, I remember that recently, I just want to share with you a story. Recently, I was traveling and through South Africa to Zimbabwe with an American family. And while we are in South Africa, we are with other South Africans. We are there for dinner. And in that table, I'm like, everyone who is here is either more educated than I am, more exposed, they've traveled than I have. They are from a fast-growing economy. And I'm there sitting and I'm like, yo, I don't feel worthy to be here. Like, I don't feel worthy to be here. Why do I have to contribute here? And, it's that kind of an environment where I feel like I need to be elegant. The people who are here are elegant. They know things, and they can speak on quite a wide variety of conversations as well. And, it's just one of those environments where you have to know what spoon is used for what. At one point, when it's about to be dinner, everyone is taking out that handkerchief. Is it called a handkerchief? They're putting here, and I'm studying everybody what they are doing, and I'm doing the same thing. And I just felt my confidence drop a little. I'm studying an environment and I'm a little bit quiet. And for anyone who knows me, most of the time I'm not quiet. I'm at the forefront of expressing my opinion. But at that time, I was just observing and listening. And I guess that's an element of confidence as well. Not knowing what you don't know and being comfortable sometimes with not having to look smart or knowledgeable and just owning that ground. But like I say, I didn't feel worthy of being in that space. I was nervous. And that is like kind of the way that confidence can affect us. We don't own spaces. We don't feel worthy of being in spaces. And then we tend not to express as well because we don't feel worthy of being in those spaces. And again, I think also as one of the things, just being on background, it was my background that affected the way I tend to express myself in that space. And as a part of background, also culture. Like, let me know in the comments what you think, guys, about this, about culture. But I just got to observe through that experience being with an American family and also having worked with Western European clients and get to see how they interact with their children. So for an example, with this American family, it's the parents, and then there are two sons. One of the sons is 30 and the other one is 28. And in one table, we are having lunch. And we're speaking on marriage. Like this morning, we'd been talking about marriage that day. And we seem, all of us, to be agreeing on the views that we have on marriage. And then one of the sons doesn't agree on the view on marriage. And, he just starts speaking. And his father interrupts and is like, Dad, allow me to speak. I allowed you to speak. It's my turn to speak. Listen to me. And that moment, I'm like, we don't do that. As African Black people, we don't do that. You can do that. Tell your parent, Mom, wait, or Uncle, wait, I'm speaking, listen. We don't do that. But do you know what that deprives us of? Learning to express ourselves and gain confidence in that what we have to speak is valid and can be truth and can equally contribute. Instead, what are we taught? We're taught that and to a degree, I appreciate all of those teachings, all of those principles, because one of the beautiful things about being African, we're big on respect. We respect our elders. However, I do think that we could raise our children in a way that teaches them that respect is not necessarily something that is tied to age, but to just humanity. You need to respect everything, young or old, woman or man. It deserves respect. So rather you teach people to communicate, to express with respect, but we don't get to limit their expression. Because uqala lapho lokho ukuthi nyalo sofikile usemvasi usaba ngisho kwenda i-presentation, now it's affecting your academic life because you never had the opportunity to do the trial and error of communicating and what you communicate to be received and digested and for people to give you feedback, and you just build the blocks on that, but rather you were quieted. So I think that is one area that we could improve on. And please don't get me wrong when it comes to culture. I think there's moments where our culture is, I think we are proud, like, mawubukela nje umhlanga kugitswa lapha timbali tigitsa uyabona ukuthi titigqabha kanjani. That's confidence, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's self-expression in its highest and best form. But when now it comes to other areas, especially in this modern world, we want to be known at a global level. And you find that in competition, shaya, because we are afraid to express ourselves. We haven't been given enough opportunities to express ourselves. Again, another example. These are old kids. Maybe you could say, 28, they could tell their parents, would say, hold up, I want to speak. But then again, my interaction with the European, with their child who's like 13 years old, and they had an excursion, and the parent asked their child to be like, oh, maybe you can tell the story. And then he goes ahead, he's given the permission to tell the story. And the child is like, oh, starts telling the story. And then the father keeps, or the parent keeps on interrupting. And the kid keeps on going like, Dad, stop. I'm telling the story. Dad, stop. I'm telling the story. Don't disturb me. And he clearly even shows in his facial expressions that he doesn't like it. He's placing the boundary. He's communicating that respecting me. This is my space to speak. And thina simnyama ngapha besimangele sibhekana nje ukuthi kwenzakalani. Lo mntana utshela umzali wakhe ukuthi yena ima ngifuna ukuthetha manje. Like, we were shocked. Like, you wouldn't do that in our environment, But I just grew a sense of admiration, and it's like, yes, maybe it's white culture, but what if there are beautiful things that we could learn from their cultures as well? So that child grows to learn that they can express themselves and they're worthy of being listened to. So that is definitely the kind of person that one day will sit in a boardroom, be a CEO, and express themselves. This is a person one day that will be in a relationship, be a man of the house, and feel like they have the leadership skills to do it. These are the type of people that will pursue a career and feel confident enough to be an expert in it. When you look the qualities of an expert in a field, it says that they have the ability to communicate, to express, to communicate concept to technical and non-technical people. So you need to have the confidence, the ability to articulate yourself to both technical and non-technical people. So if you don't get enough opportunities to practice that, building confidence is a journey. So, I think that's one area as Africans, as Black people, that we could try to work on. Allow people to express themselves. Allow people to dance. Allow people to wear clothes, like allow diversity. Because, sometimes usaba ngisho ukugqoka ama-colors. Usaba ukugqoka yellow because it will draw eyes on you. People are going to be like, naye wabe usugqoka lo yellow. Nje. Spotlight kuye. Oh, you judge yourself. You're like, masangigqoke lo yellow bata bese bayangibuka. What's wrong with that? Allow people to look at you. You're a manifestation of creation, So confidence is important. Like, imagine a world where everybody was confident, where everyone is like, I'm going to start that business. I'm going to start, I'm going to communicate to my partner confidently and place boundaries and tell them how I feel. I'm I'm gonna confidently express my emotions, my weaknesses, my strengths. I'm gonna go ahead and showcase my art. I'm gonna go ahead and go to a different country. I'm gonna go ahead and live and enjoy life. Like, imagine a world like that. It'd be so colorful. So that's the beauty of confidence. And that's what we get to deprive ourselves of, what we get to deprive the world of if we don't express. And one other thing that makes us less confident is not celebrating little wins. You learned everything in life, from walking to cooking, to dressing yourself, everything you've learned. So now, if you can't go back and give yourself a tap on the back for little things, then you won't have enough things to reflect on to say, I've achieved, that propel you to go forward and pursue other things. So celebrate the things that you've become good at. Oh, you've learned to prepare that dish, You've learned to do an intro about yourself for 5 minutes, You've stepped out of your home and now maybe you take care of your own bills. You've moved to a different place. You've got that scholarship. You celebrate those things. You've learned to forgive. You've learned to release, to let go. Celebrate those things. Because anything that you were not able to do before and you can do in the future, you're capable of getting things done, of doing things. And sometimes celebrating things could look like getting a cupcake to celebrate that, getting on a call to share with somebody, journaling, writing it down so that it's engraved in your soul, in your system, so that you get to remember. Because one day, let me tell you what, you're going to need it. When you go to that interview, you're going to need to remind yourself, I've done things before and I'm going to do this. So celebrating those wins propels us to do things in the future. And also, one other key area that I want to share that I think is a driver that makes us less confident is to think that you have to be confident in all areas. I think we have the misconception that just because maybe we see a person being confident in one area, they are confident in all areas. No. I'm going to share with you that I may look like I'm a good communicator and I'm good at expressing myself. And because I can be in front of cameras and do it, and it's like, oh, she's a great communicator. Well, let me tell you what. I can be a poor communicator in intimate relationships. Yep. Difficulty to talk about myself. When I think about communicating about things that make me feel like I'm less competent, or it will make me feel shame, or a person will have a little bit of less respect for me, I'm horrible. I'm horrible at communicating about that. And it literally takes me having to have a talk with myself to say, Claudia, talk about it. Talk about it. This is the time. You can't keep running away from it. And you know what I actually get to do? I change the topic. I start making jokes or go like, I just have something to do. Let us talk later. I run away from the conversation. And it is something I've had to like when someone is being confrontational with me, my voice even shakes. I want to cry because I don't feel confident enough. I don't trust myself enough to hold that kind of a conversation. And, sometimes it just even takes learning. So one of the things I've learned is that I'm more confident to communicate through writing. And I think this dates back to the fact that because of our culture, you don't express. I kind of learned to express through journaling, through writing. So I kind of realized that, I'm better at communicating when we write. So when you come to me and you're like, Claudia, why did you do this? When you do this in person, I can't. I'll end up just being a yes person, and I'm like, yeah, you're right, Ngapi. Because I don't have the confidence to have that conversation. So thinking that if you're confident in one area, you have to be confident in everything. No, that's a misconception. That is a lie. You will have to work on other things. Just like if you've never taken swimming classes, you'll not be confident in your swimming classes. So it's an area that you will need to actively work on, right? So really it's layers. Like confidence is layers. It's not a destination. It's not one place that you just achieve and you're like, oh, I'm confident, you can throw anything at me. I mean, I mentioned Honorable Savannah, that she's good. She's good when she speaks. But there could be one area that she doesn't go into, because she knows she's not an expert in it. And if she's handed that role, that task, or she has to do that thing, she needs to have a little bit of meditation and positive self-talk and prepare really well, in order for her to do that thing. So now, let me just share with you practices that you could have to help yourself boost confidence. And one of them that I'd like to advise is role models. Just like I've mentioned, my role models already. And, Honorable Savannah Mazia, Dr. Ngonjo Iwayela, she's part of the World Trade Organization. I like how she speaks when she does her presentations. She doesn't even look at her slide presentation. She just be speaking, and I'm like, oh, woman, your Barack Obamas, we know they are good speakers. So have your list. I'm pretty sure you already have a list of people that when you watch, you're like, I wish I was like you. I wish I did that like you. Those are role models. Pay attention to those people and steal those things that they do. Make them your tactics. And sometimes people could be like, you are a wannabe. Hell with that. It's fine. Be a wannabe. Fake it till you make it. That's all right. It's a starting point for you. When you know the journey that you're on, like, it's not trying to lose your identity. Hey, it's just a journey and just practicing, There's definitely times that I feel like I spoke and I'm sounding like an English person. And it's like, she's a coconut. She's a wannabe. And I'm like, I'm cool. It's fine. You know what? My wannabe attitude, it worked for me. Because let me tell you what, my first job that I got that helps me make money was to work with Westerners. And that accent, that English accent, is what helped me get that job. Because they'd be like, oh, this person could actually communicate with our clients, in a confident way and in a way that they can understand. And I came across a friend one time that was like, Claudia, I need you so bad. I actually failed an interview for a scholarship because they said my accent was too strong. So practice. This doesn't mean that in order for you to start speaking in English, you need to have some kind of Western accent. No, it's fine. Express in your English accent. It's fine. You need to start from somewhere. At the end of the day, expression is not about an accent. It's just being able to communicate in a world that people can receive and digest and hear you. So that's the point. Have your role models. Copy those people until you get to a point where you feel like you're an authority figure in that thing, and just go ahead and be a confident person. And also another thing, it's embodying and practicing it. You don't have to wait until you feel it. Embody, think about, what would the confident version of me do right now? And the moment it's like, the confident version of me right now would be walking up there in front of those people and start talking about what I believe in. Count 1 up to 3 and walk up there and start talking. Yeah. That's how you actually get to start. And that is how I was doing the beauty contest. That is how I was doing debates. That is how I was doing presentations. I was like, the best version of me is standing in front of those people and talking about mental health and stoicism, about everything I've read about in the books and that I feel like everybody needs to know, or I'd like to invite more people to think like me in this area. And I'm not attaching to how you feel about me afterwards. Like sometimes I would have feelings where I'm like, I care about what you think, the way you perceive me, but I don't attach to it. So embody confidence without attaching to the outcome. It's not a destination. Confidence is not success, is not confirmed success. No. And another thing is self-development. You know, I was listening to Vusi Tembekwayo. Other thing, you know, how are you going to know about these things if you don't actually do self-development? I'm referencing to Vusi Tembekwayo because, listen to me say Vusi Tembekwayo, because he's this business guru, and that's because I'm huge on self-development. So this is how I get to come across a lot of this content, and that I try to end up applying in my personal life. So this is why self-development is important. And when you actually get to watch this podcast as part of your self-development journey, and you get some nuggets and you get to practice some things, right? But like, I was listening to him and he was sharing how he overcame his public speaking fear. And he said, my brain has the tendency to just go blank, guys. Does it happen to all of you? Like sometimes I'm like, is it aging? But he was like, yes, train of thought is back. He was like, I would prepare so well, focus on one area of a topic and read, like know everything that is there to know about it and go speak about it. So preparation. So if you know that you have a presentation, prepare for it to the best of your abilities. You know, one time I was preparing for this podcast and my sister found me at 2 a.m. and she's like, oh, you're awake at this time. What are you doing? And I'm like, I'm reading articles. I'm preparing for the podcast. And she was like, oh my gosh, you put so much time and energy to this. And that is so that I can come here and be confident about why I have to speak. And it doesn't have to be politically correct. You don't have to agree with it. At the end of the day, is how I perceived what I was reading. It's what I think about the world, and it's just me expressing myself. So just prepare, you know? That is why you'll find that people who are specialists or experts in their fields, they'll express themselves so well because it's something they've been doing for 20 years, you know? So preparation helps. One other thing that you'll find most self-development gurus talk about is that all you need is to be 10% better than your audience. Yeah. So if you know 10% better than your audience on a subject, you have something valuable to share with them. Go in front of them and speak about it. If you can paint better than Claudia, who's never painted before, go paint and sell that painting. Because you are better than me. And because I can't do it myself, I'll pay you to get that thing, right? If you can cook better than 10% better, like if you can make lasagna 10% better than I can, hey, do that thing. If you can dance better than I can, go do that thing, right? That is reason enough to encourage you to go do that thing. You don't need to be feeling 100% confident to do it. And yeah, just like read, rehearse, prepare. Like I said, I used to stand in front of the mirror and rehearse and prepare until it was autopilot, and then I go do that thing. And sometimes I just have to convince myself to do that thing. So yeah, own spaces, be present, go for it. And once again, I'll just say that as we wrap up, imagine a world where everybody was confident. Imagine that version of you that is confident. I bet you are proud of it. Its potential is humongous. I often reflect about other areas of my life where I'm like, oh, if I was more confident at this, I'd be there. And I'm working on those areas. So let's work on those areas together, okay? Now, ladies and gentlemen, let us wrap up this episode. I'm so happy. It's like the 10th episode. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope that you've gotten some nuggets, some things to reflect on, some areas that you think a lack of confidence is affecting in your life. And you'll just jolt down a couple of things that you want to actively and intentionally practice to boost your confidence. I hope you share this episode to somebody that you feel like it would really really help them, that you feel like they need it. You know, they could be a student. Confidence affects your academic performance, your career, your relationships, all of that. We've dissected on it. So please do share it with anyone that you feel like they need it. It would come at the right time. And yes, of course, do subscribe, follow, share TFE Network and Real Talk with Claudia on Instagram. And, you know, we end every episode with a quote. And today's quote is, there's a countdown, guys. I've been speaking and speaking. Today's quote is, confidence is not, they will like me. Confidence is, I'll be fine if they don't. And it's by Christina Grimmie. So yes, it don't matter if they like you. What's important is that you do the thing with love.